Thank you very much, Catherine, for this kind introduction. Thank you to the Task Force on Global Health for organizing this. It's almost like a family reunion. And I would like to, first of all, as Catherine just did, recognize and thank Bruce for having really given a very comprehensive and scholarly review of a story of compassion, a story of competence, a coordination, and creativity. And Bruce just outlined some of the ways in which he has drawn lessons from this decades long partnership. And from the point of view of a long practitioner of development, I would like to share with you five main takeaways that I had. Bruce has done it very comprehensively in the book, but what I wanted to do is what, after almost 3 decades in development, what spoke to me in this book. First of all, time. The fact that development is a long term process. It takes decades of grit, as Catherine just said, and to get to real, lasting, and sustainable human development takes decades. And yet, what we see increasingly in the world of development is a very justified need for results, but results quickly. And often there is a disconnect between the stick to itness that Catherine just mentioned and the realizations of objectives. Think education, think health, think climate change. Those are not things that can be achieved very quickly. So the time dimension, the fact that over decades this program was able to continue is a clear lesson for me of what a successful partnership needs to be. The second is clear and operational objectives. It was not simple. And those of you who have read the books is how complicated it was to really diagnose the disease and get everybody to participate. But it was a very simple set of objectives that people stuck to, but not in a rigid sort of way. And the characteristic of the program, which Bruce has wonderfully described in the book, is the ability to adjust to challenges, to adjust to circumstances, and to do this with, again, a basis of evidence founded decision making. And the role of the operations research program was absolutely essential. Once a challenge was identified, then the people went and designed experiments, found solutions that were tested on the ground, and were able to adjust and to do this. We talk a lot these days about adaptive management, and it's one of the new mantras of development. The ONCO program did adaptive management without knowing the name. And that is another very important solution to good and tested programs. Now, partnership means a lot of things, but I think that what happened, and in some ways we can see in the very program itself how differently partnerships can work depending on how they are put together. In the beginning, what really struck me when I was participating in meetings was the sense that everybody knew their job, everybody knew their place, and there was mutual respect and acceptance of the delineation of responsibilities because they were based on comparative advantage and demonstrated expertise. So it was very important to have all of this establishment with an independent top that was accepted as legitimate because it did not have any vested interest. And the vested interest was the success of the program without any turf battles. And that had to do with the independence and the fact that in many ways the program had the chance and the curse of not being part and parcel of the establishment of any of the participating agencies. So it had its own independence and was able to draw on the agencies without being uh, part of the internal battles that are too often what happens in the agencies. And then there was the role of the private sector, which everybody talks about today, but that was done in a very different manner because it was a private sector whose only vested interest was the health of people. The fact that Merck and then others decided to give the drug for as long as needed for free was an extraordinary decision that is rare to mention today in the public-private partnerships, where the private sector comes in there also with profit-based motivations. So I think that whether this is a replicable uh, feature in other partnerships is something, to my mind, that remains to be seen. But it was extremely important, and the fact that there was transparency and trust because everybody was able to see, and Bruce documents it wonderfully in the program, in the book, how everyone's contributions were used. Um, and the last few years of APOC, and I don't mean to say anything negative about WHO, when this independence was in some sense no longer there, showed that there were many more factors that came into being that were not there at the very beginning. Another dimension is innovation and evidence-based decisions, again linked to the importance of the operations research program. Obviously, the key is ivermectin. The fact that the insecticide resistance was really very much documented. The use of maps. Personally, I really became intrigued with the UNCO program at the lunch with Bruce in Ghana, where he really got me interested by showing me the maps that he just showed you in his presentation. And this was at a time when maps were not at all used. And to me, one of the greatest stories of the importance of the evolution of this program was the transformation of a top-down, expert-led program into a bottom-up community development, a community-driven distribution. And the fact that this was done with a lot of care to make sure that the community development distribution, the community-directed distribution was not at the expense of anything scientific is a wonderful story. In particular, the way in which the scientists were able to design very simple methodologies so that the community workers knew how much ivermectin to give people. You have seen in the book the picture of the stick that was developed to do that. So this is a real example of mixing science with community driven, because no one will know a community better than the people who live there. And you saw the pride in the video of the community worker that was very proud of the results that he had achieved for his community. And finally, the most elusive element of a partnership is leadership, and leadership at all levels. Well, we heard Mr. Vegelos, we heard the role of Robert McNamara, we heard what Jim Wolfenson did, and that was important to give at the very top level of these organizations the sense that what the UNCO program was doing mattered, even though it was not directly in line. And also the wonderful people here today, the people who led the program, Samba, Seketeli, Anazigo, all these people, each in their own way, were leaders who knew how to fight, as Catherine said, but also how to listen and how to adapt their views, always because the objectives were so good and were so clear. So my sense is that a lot of has been learned, and a lot needs to be continuing to be gotten out of this program, because today some of the big global programs, whether it's the Global Fund or Gavi or the Global Alliance to Improve Nutrition, have some but not all of these partnership dimensions. And my hope is that together with the new um, roadmap, that we will continue to explore and learn from this program, so that the wonderful miracle, which is not so much a miracle as a story of great determination and human ingenuity, will also be applied to other partnerships. So again, thanks to all of you who have been part of making hard work look like a miracle.